Okay, so we want to populate our database with some data that we can work with so that we can lay out our user interface and also our logic in our application as well. And there's many good reasons for seeding data into a database whilst you're building an application. You don't want to be manually creating every user in the database because that's time consuming and tedious. And one of our common tasks as a developer is to generate seed data and populate that database. Now, there's a few different techniques of doing this. The approach that we're going to take is to use an online tool that's going to generate some random data that we can use to populate our database. Now, the tool that we're going to use, if you search for JSON generator in Google, it's this top one that we want. JSON generator, tool for generating random data. There's a whole bunch of different options for doing this sort of thing. So we'll click on this one. And we won't show the next version, and I'm going to click don't show again. We'll just want the old version, which works perfectly fine for what we're doing here. If you do want to dabble with the next version, just a word of warning that you would need to create an account with this, and I don't particularly want to or need to do that. And what this tool gives us is a bunch of different options for generating random data. We can create GUIDs, booleans, floating point values, integers, random array of things. We can use first name, gender, etc. A whole bunch of options, and we can also provide this with functions that can return customized data as well. Pretty cool. And if we click on generate just to see what this gives us, then it generates a bunch of random data. And in this case, it's a repeating loop of between 5 and 7 items. And that's pretty cool, but this can be quite arduous to type out the stuff inside here that we do want to generate. So to help us out, inside our student assets folder, there's a file called jsongenerator.txt, and we're just going to copy this into our clipboard and take it across to the JSON generator tool and overwrite what's inside here. And we're going to repeat this 5 times. We're going to have 5 female users and 5 male users. So our username is going to be a first name of type female. The gender is going to be female. We're going to generate a random date of birth. We're going to use the username as their known as name. The date created is going to be a random date between sometime in 2020 and a bit later time in 2020. We've got last active. The introduction is going to be a paragraph of lorem ipsum text, same as looking for, and the interest is just going to be lorem ipsum, but just a sentence, and then a random city and a random country. Full of photos, we're going to use a function because we're going to go to a random user site that allows us to use their photographs for our users. So each user is going to have an initial photograph, and we're going to set that as the URL, and it's going to generate a random image between 1 and 99 based on what's inside this particular API, and we're automatically going to set that to true. And if we click on generate just to see what this gives us, we can see that it's going to generate a bunch of users. And you can keep clicking on this because sometimes it duplicates the usernames unusually, and we do need our usernames to be unique. Otherwise, we're going to get an error in our database. And you can just keep clicking until you've got some fairly easy to use usernames. And once you're happy with that, just copy the JSON to the clipboard, and we'll go across to VS Code. And inside Solution Explorer, inside the data folder, we'll right click and say new file, and we'll call this user seed data.json and press return and just paste in what we have in our clipboard. And this is a bunch of users. And we'll go back to our JSON generator, we'll make a few tweaks, and instead of the first name being female, we'll use male for male users. And the gender we'll set to male, and that is all fine, but instead of female images we'll go for men in this case for the images, and everything else stays the same. Then we can click generate, And then we'll get a list of male users. And we can copy this into the clipboard, and we can go back to VS Code, and below our female users, before this closing square brackets, we'll add a comma, and we'll paste in what we have. And we'll need to make an adjustment because we don't need this square bracket just above the first male user. And we'll also have an extra one at the bottom as well. So we'll just take out the extra, and then we can use the formatting tool. And now we've got a list of 10 users, 5 male, 5 female. But I'm not going to use what I've just created because this is an update to a previous version of this lesson. So I want to stick with the users that I used before. And if you are running into problems with your seed data for whatever reason, it's not working, I've also provided in the student assets folder the user seed data.json that I'm going to be using, and I'm just going to open this with the text edit app, and I'm just going to copy the whole thing into my clipboard and go back to the user seed JSON data, Control A and Control V, to use the same batch of users that I used in the previous version of this lesson, with the top username being Lisa. So that's great. We've now got a JSON file that contains random data with a bunch of different users, 5 male, 5 female. What we'll take a look at next is how we can use this JSON file to populate our database.